Okay, Mike, so do you think Idenics can help people with their spiritual journey?
Well, it has helped quite a few people with that sort of thing. Um,
Do
Maybe
tell.
they
Let us.
don't necessarily use those words to describe it because every person kind of puts it a little bit differently.
Uh-huh.
But that particular thing, yes, yes, 'cause I've been working for a long time with people, and a lot of people aren't necessarily bringing up some condition like low self-esteem or anger or depression or something like that. They're not bringing it up like they're bringing up something like I'm I'm on a spiritual path
Mm-hmm.
or journey, like you say, or I'm
Okay.
doing these things and there's so there's something they bring up regarding that. Okay.
I see.
And a lot of times, like they bring it up the way you said it in a positive manner, like I want, I have this path I'm on, but it's just not going as fast as I want to, right? Or
Got
it's
it.
not, or I'm getting hung up, or whatever. So a lot of times they're going to tell you exactly the problem that they're having, with that, and it can be
Mm-hmm.
taken up easily as a personal unwanted condition, right?
Okay.
But if they mention it in a way like, I want to be able to improve this, I wanted to enhance this, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of it, then I'm just going to find out, well, I'm going to ask them. I'm going to ask them if that's the case, what's getting in your way or holding you back from
Mm-hmm.
doing that? And I think I mentioned this in another show, another video, that it's just like walking through a doorway, no door, just a doorway. And how would you do that? You would just do it unless something was holding you back or getting in your way. So that question brings up those kind of things. And then it's a matter of just taking them up. And once you take that up, people start feeling better. In other words, it's removing the roadblocks, but they're not roadblocks that I'm saying these are the roadblocks to this.
Got it.
You
So
know,
Idenics doesn't like have a bunch of roadblocks identified that you can work on. It's up to the
no.
person based on their lives to figure out, well, to figure it out, or well, they to notice that these are roadblocks, or to just notice that their life, their spiritual
Well,
journey isn't going as fast as they'd like, and then just saying, hey, is there anything we can do about this?
right. Well, they know what they are because when I ask them, they come to most of them know what those things are anyway.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do. They just look at it at that point. But then once they've identified what these things are,
Hmm.
right? Maybe they have and I've mentioned this before too. It's like any condition like this. If they say notice 5 different things that are roadblocks in their way of their spiritual journey, or whatever words they put that in, right?
Uh-huh.
Then
Yeah.
I'm going to take those 5 things, and I'm going to ask them, of these 5 things that you gave me, and I'll read them back to you, and I'd read them back in their words exactly.
Hmm.
What's the most important to take up first? We're not going to take everything up at once.
Hmm.
So we take them up. What's the most important to take up first? When that's been established, then we address that,
Well, what
right?
if there doesn't that put some pressure on them? And it's like, oh no, now I have to figure out which one of these five is the most
Uh,
important, or I'm going to screw
uh,
something up.
I've never had that in all
Okay.
the years. I've never had somebody say that to me because that's the way I handle almost any condition that's stated that way. Like, I want to improve this area, or I want this ability, or I want to be able to make more money. These kind of things where it's put in that kind of a slant, rather than I want to get rid of this condition.
Mm.
I want to it's more in a positive standpoint. So
Hmm.
if that's the case, so what's getting in your way or holding you back from doing that?
Huh. Sure.
So they give me 5 things. Well, okay, then you ask them, of these 5 things. It takes a little conversation. That's
Hmm.
all. They usually, I've never had anybody take that long to settle on one. And sometimes it's usually pretty quick. And a
Okay.
lot of times it's the first one they mentioned. I'm not saying all the time, but
Right.
it's not I've never had a difficulty with that. So once they settle on that thing, then we address that with the Idenics mechanics to a point where that is resolved for them, right?
Got it.
Now, then you find out where you're at that point.
Mm.
Well, what about this spiritual? How you feel? Oh, I feel pretty good about things right now. Good
Hmm.
point to end this session. Yes. Okay.
Okay.
It depends. I'm going to always end the session on a good point, and
Right.
he may never bring it up again. He may
Huh.
come in the next session and say, "Well, that's pretty good, but I'm still having, I still have, things I want to work on my spiritual journey, and there were four other things. Could we work on those? Of course.
Mm.
So of these four things, what's the most important to take up first now?" And then away
Sure.
you go. Or, I mean, the possibilities are it's different for different people. This person might come in and just say, well, none of those, they never even mention the list. They say, I still want to work on that. And the thing that's getting in my way is something you hadn't heard about before. So whatever it is, you just take up these things one at a time, resolve it, and then you see where you're at.
Right. So now, spiritual journey means different things for different people, right?
Right,
Everybody has their
right,
own path. They might be
right.
doing a variety of different modalities,
Yeah,
as they're looking. Okay. So
yeah.
is there a particular belief system that Idenics has that gets in the way of any of these spiritual journeys?
No, not at all. Because there is no belief system, things that you have to buy into in identics. Not I mean, there are things that I state to people of what we're doing,
Hmm.
and they might not agree with that. Okay, because I'll tell people right off the bat that what I'm dealing with is people's responses, not stuff that was, somebody else not in there, and they go, oh well, I just want to handle the people that are ruining my life. I don't want to talk about them. I didn't ever do any. Well, so I'm not interested. Okay, I mean, they might not be.
Right. Right.
Okay, I mean, so I'm saying there are certain things, but not any kind of beliefs that one has to buy into. Not any kind. Somebody had just asked me, um, how does past lives play a part in identics?
Okay.
And this person asked it because they're very much a belief in past lives
Right.
and a lot of the effect, that sort of thing. Does this play a part in it? In other words, and basically what I told them was that there is no mention of this within Identics materials or anything that's said to a person.
Hmm.
It's not one way or the other. If it comes up because the person brought it up.
Okay.
Okay, it's something that's brought up by the individual, not something that we're now educating them into.
Mm.
Okay, on something like that.
So
Right?
you don't have to believe in past lives to do Idenics, and on the
No.
other hand, you don't have to not believe in it to do
Exactly.
Idenics. It
If a
just,
person, exactly. If a person has some problem, well, I have it. Okay, I just address it.
mm,
If that's the problem for them, we address it. There's no judgment one way or the other,
hmm.
right? And people say, well, don't you have certain, things about identics that people, well, like I said, there are a few things, like I mentioned, dealing with people's responses, but for a lot of the stuff, it doesn't matter. I'm still listening to what the person says. And that's the way we've done it since day one. I
Right.
remember in the very beginning, we didn't have much in terms of questions and mechanics. And a lot of it was just in the beginning, mechanics had to do pretty exclusively with identities.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
In other words, that people's unwanted conditions come from being stuck in some identity that the person forgets that they don't know they're in it. They just are operating from that,
Mm, right.
and like the suit of armor example that we gave in another video, right?
Right. Right.
All
Right.
right. So, but this is in those days where we didn't have a whole lot. And I remember a guy coming to John for to work with him,
Hmm.
and I had sent him information in those days, and I talked to people because they come from out of town, and it was quite a trip and an expense. And the guy got here, and he told John, he says, I mean, I'm very excited about doing this, but I got to tell you, I don't have any identities. So he said, I don't have any identities, right?
Okay.
And John just said, okay. And the guy kept talking. He says, yeah, I have what I would call compartmentations, but I don't have that. I don't have the identity. So John just started asking about compartmentations, plugged it in, and everything worked fine. Okay. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to always listen to them.
Sure. Good.
You know, I mean, the best standard questions that we have came from people, not from our minds. It came from,
Right.
and they work in a majority of the time with people to help them look, but not always. Maybe the best question I got's good 85% of the time.
Mm.
I mean, and that's pretty good.
Right.
Okay. And then, but I have other questions, and I have what I call the special questions, stuff that they hand me,
Hmm.
so we can get in there, 95% of the time.
Sure.
But there's no 100%. Okay. And there's no on any question. So that's basically it. You're listening to the person, and what they tell you is 100%. See,
Uh-huh.
that's the beauty. If
Interesting.
if I,
Yeah.
if I say, for instance, well, when you're in that viewpoint, what is there anything that must be continued,
Uh-huh.
must be continually done, must be continued, kept going? Well, it's not really continued. It's more like maintained. Okay, thank
Okay.
you. So is
Sure.
there any, and do you think if I give that question back to the guy, it's going to work?
Oh,
Well, do you
sure.
think, is there anything about that's going to be that must be maintained?
Right.
I guarantee you I'm going to get an answer 100% of the time because they just handed it to me.
Right.
And those are the best ones.
Mm.
Those are the ones, but maybe that works on nobody else ever again,
Hmm.
just that person.
Yeah.
But part of it, you got to be listening. So I don't know if maybe I've over answered your question a
No,
bit,
that's
but
okay. One thing I was just noticing though is that it's really interesting because without it seems like Idenics is very practical. Like it's very hands-on. Like you get right to the point of what the issue is that the person's dealing with without a lot of backstory or yap or anything like that. It's just like you jump right into it both feet. So it seems to be very practical in how it can address and then handle unwanted conditions. Is that what you see?
yes, it's very practical in that way. And also, it's something that just addresses, like you said, addresses directly what this person wants as they state it, as it is for them,
Hmm.
right? And even if they can't state it, it's addressed the same way.
Mm.
If they just say, like I might have mentioned before, I can't put that into words. Well, they know what they're looking at, so I
Mm.
ask the same questions with that thing. I've had people say, I can't put it into words.
Hmm.
I say, okay, if we just call it that condition,
Mm.
you know what it is. You know what you're looking at, don't you? Well, yeah, I know. I just can't. I have a hard time telling you. Well, but you know what it is when you look at that.
Mm.
Yes. So if we just call it that condition, will that work? Oh, yeah.
Huh.
And I go through, I don't know just that condition,
Sure.
because there's no, like I said before, we're not evaluating some particular conditions or have some resolution for a condition for everybody, because they're always different anyway.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter as long as they're looking at what they need to
Hmm.
look at. Okay. And then
Yeah.
the other thing about practical is that um, what we're doing and the concepts behind the mechanics that we use are very understandable to people.
Mm.
It's not like something I have to, oh, I can't tell you that's too high. No, I can, they can understand any of it because a lot of it complements their own way of thinking.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
It's very, like you said, it's practical in terms of how it works. It just makes sense, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Little
does.
things, little things like we were talking about once before. People have been told that one of the things they get stuck with is losses in their life,
Mm.
and things that have happened. And this is how, so they're out there looking for the past losses. And why would one hold on to a loss? In other words, if
Hmm.
somebody gets stuck in something, it was always a win. It accomplished something. Otherwise,
Oh.
it would make sense.
Huh.
You wouldn't be holding on to it. It may be considered very losing proposition now because
Uh-huh.
it's happening in automatic situations and in circumstances they don't want. But where these things began were never started in law. Maybe there was something going on that would be considered lost, but what stuck the person, what they got stuck with, their
Hmm.
response worked. That's why it got stuck. That's how they held on to it. That's part
So
of the, Yeah, so that's just a make sense kind of a thing.
Huh.
Why would you hold on to a loss? It doesn't make any sense.
Uh,
There's no benefit in it.
Right, right. Yeah, but I can understand why people would buy into that pretty easily because it's like you think, oh, a loss, a grief, trauma, that's the thing that's going to hit me and then I'm going to be stuck with it for the rest of my life. But I mean, everybody's heard of people who have had terrible losses and terrible traumas and it doesn't seem to bother them after they get over the grieving stage, right? But
Well,
then there are other people that are just stuck with that for years and then it
exactly,
ruins their entire life.
exactly. And it looks to people like this is the thing that caused it. But
Hmm.
that's a very common misconception
Mm,
that these um, traumatic incidents, these other people, things that have happened to people in the past, are what is causing their present dilemma,
hmm.
and it's not true.
Hmm.
It's not true. These things when they got started, yes, that may have been connected to it.
Hmm.
Something may have happened, some kind of a thing like that,
Hmm.
definitely,
Hmm.
whatever that was for that person. But their response at the time handled it at the time somehow.
Okay.
Somehow it resolved it. And and they got stuck with it. The response.
Right.
Like the example of the anger incident, the guy with the anger and yelling at his wife and kids or hitting them and it started in the war. Well, when it started in the war, it worked. It
Hmm.
saved him.
Hmm.
It got stuck, but that
Hmm.
was the benefit.
Hmm.
So once again, the anger itself isn't bad, even though the person coming into a session is going, I want to get rid of this, because from
Hmm.
that point of view that he's in now, it's ruining his life.
Right.
Well, yeah, the automatic nature of it is coming up in situations that are not
Sure.
applicable.
Yeah.
But 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 when we're done, like I'd mentioned, I don't know if people get rid of anything other than that automatic nature.
Right.
So
Right.
and because what you're doing is you want to have freedom. True freedom is freedom, not only freedom from, but freedom to.
Hmm. Yeah. A
Uh,
lot of these spiritual, getting back to the whole spiritual
yeah.
question that we started with, a lot of these guys will say things like, well, once you really understand yourself, then you'll be able to let all these things go and, elevate to the higher levels. And, that sounds great. That's very, lets you think deep thoughts and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But again, it's not very practical. So, again, this sounds like Idenics would be complementary to people on their spiritual journey because they would be able to get rid of those things that are holding them back or getting in their way, right?
Yeah, it's a good example because a lot of times people that what they've done in the past is they maybe they've worked with somebody in the self-improvement. What you need to do is create this way of being. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be this thing. I remember one which is model the successful person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. So you get that and you create a way of being, an identity that is a winner, modeled on this successful person. Great. A lot of self-improvement deals with being this thing and staying in this thing.
Sure.
But the things that are there, the ones that they don't like, the identities they don't like, the ways of being that they don't like, it kind of helps cover it up, is
Yeah,
what it
sure.
does. And it takes a lot of effort to keep those things up there and working.
Huh.
But the other ones can just, the automatic ones can just pop up their ugly heads anytime without even being called upon.
Right.
So unless you take care of those, all the other stuff is, you
Huh.
know, it's kind of it's not handling the source of the problem.
Right.
The
Right.
problem is there's something there stuck. In other words, finding out who you're not is a heck of a way of finding out, of who you really are,
Mm.
because that's what people are doing. They're finding out in identics who they're not. A lot of things that they thought they were this, and they're not. And when that goes, you're just that much freer.